Hello, everyone. Welcome into today's webinar, Ask the Experts How to Maximize Your Pen Testing Experience, presented by TCM Security experts Angela Brown and Joe Hudson. My name is Mariela Salinas, and I will be assisting in moderating today's session. We are in Zoom for today's webinar, and we will be sharing a copy of this recording with you in an email after the session. We do encourage participation throughout the session, so please use the chat or that Q&A option for our dedicated Q&A after the presentation. Educate 360 is so excited to present this webinar today. I will now hand it over to you, Angela and Joe.
Thanks a lot. This is really exciting. Anytime I get a chance to sit down with Ange and talk, I don't care if it's on camera or off camera, I definitely want it. Just looking at the chat, seeing one of our good friends, Evan, here. Really good to see your name pop up, man. We have a great community of people. So happy to be here. I'm Joe Hudson. I'm going to be facilitating for the most part, I would say. I'm a director of growth here at TCM, been here for a few years and primarily focused on dealing with all of the engagements that come in from our consulting side, sales work, anything to do with client relationship management, documentation, et cetera. So really throwing myself into the gauntlet. But the fun part is the pen testing side, and that's where we have Ange. Take it away, Ange.
Hello, everyone. I'm looking at the chat and it's like a bunch of friends have joined. So I'm really excited to see everyone here. My name is Angela Brown, go by Ange. Also go by Dirtbag in case you see that come across here, there, or anywhere. I'm a senior penetration tester here at TCM Security. I have kind of a couple different specialties. I'm into network stuff. I do love to do physicals. I love lock picking and things like that too. And then most recently have been dabbling in web. So I'm really excited to be here today. This is the first opportunity I think I've had to sit down with like Educate 360 and TCM. So this is great.
Yeah, definitely had a good year in terms of being exposed to a whole lot of new things. As we've gone through the integration and whatnot with Educate 360, there's a whole lot of different things that we can do. There's a whole lot of different people we're working with. And our services, the cool thing I think has been really fun to watch is that I don't think that the quality of our delivery on pen testing has wavered like whatsoever. It hasn't been impacted at all. And you guys just continue to show up and talk to each other and work together. And so I think, I'll say it for the world here, but, my favorite part about working here is working with you guys directly and being able to go to bat for y'all every day. And so I am super pumped to sit here and talk pen testing with you because I think there's a lot of topics that people wonder. I think that there's a lot of stuff that people assume companies know about what they want and sort of what is required. And we'll talk about some compliance and stuff today and, who's requiring what, because there's a lot of gray area. They don't make it easy. It feels like lawyers definitely wrote that for us to not really know what exactly are you saying here. But we're going to go through a bunch of questions. For anyone that's here, definitely invite you to just jump in with questions. Like we definitely would want to prioritize things that you guys are interested in knowing, whether personally, if it's regarding just certain things you want to do with pen testing, or if it's on behalf of your company. Of course, we'll have different things that we'll cover, but you can always reach out if we don't address any of those questions. And so I think, yeah, let's jump in. And I'm going to pull a curveball on the first question. So
Oh
I'm going to
no.
actually ask you something that I would like your personal answer on this one, because you've had such an interesting journey to get to the pen testing field. You definitely took a little of a different route than 99% of the people. And I think within the first 3 minutes of me meeting you, the first question I asked was like, what are you doing in your job, that you were in at the time? Because it didn't make sense. But my questions are, now that you've been doing this for a while, like what is your favorite and least favorite thing about pen testing?
Ooh, I mean, I entered this industry because I didn't want to do the same thing every single day.
Mm-hmm.
And that is still my favorite part of pen testing. I feel like some things are going to be consistent. You are always going to find, missing security headers on a website or, this or that. But truly, each environment is just a little bit different from the next. And I get to do different things, try different things as new vulnerabilities come out. I get to play with those. And then just the education doesn't stop. So I mean, you can't beat that. I think being
Mm-hmm.
constantly engaged is good for us as humans. And so a career field where you're constantly doing something different is I think where I belong. You know, so I think that's the good. Did you also ask me about my least favorite, or are you going there?
I do
My
want to
least
know because I think pen testing before I got over here, right? I was recruiting
favorite.
for a long time. I placed a lot of pen testers. My level of questioning was nowhere near where it would be today because of what I've gotten to see working with you guys. But before I
Yeah.
came here, before I really got to see all that goes into a pen testing engagement, from my view, it's magic. It's so cool. It's always exciting and everything. And then, I mean, I think we keep it exciting, but at the same time, there's a lot of things that are not necessarily like, oh, I can't wait to go do that,
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I'm curious, just from your view, like, what is part of your routine or something to do with pen testing that you find to be like the most, like, not my favorite, or it's something that I'm trying to overcome?
It's I can answer it really squarely. And I come from like I mean, I started working when I was 15 years old, so that is
Mm,
that's over 20 years now, a little bit well over 20 years now. And I've done customer service roles again and again and again. And so this answer is based in customer service. I don't like to not hit expectations. And so for me, if a client comes in and maybe, doesn't know what they're kind of getting into, or they don't, I don't meet their expectations in some type of
mhm,
way. That is always for me the hardest part. And I think it is also then the separator. TCM, we've talked about this a lot over the last several years, but like it's why I do like to do the Slack channels. It's why I like to do training with, employees from the companies that are our clients. I get the opportunity to ensure that like that client relationship goes well. No one wants an unhappy client,
no.
and mostly because I just care so much about this stuff. Um, I want to ensure that like I'm providing substance to these companies because I've been in forensics and incident response. And I want to make sure that if I can help them not have a cyber incident, right? So that's what I
Mhm.
don't like. I like to meet expectations, and when I don't, it's rough.
You do beat yourself up quite a bit whenever that happens, but it's
I
very
do.
rare. It's very rare.
Yeah.
But it's part of what you all do is so complex. I mean, I sat with our team lead Aaron a couple weeks ago, and he showed me Burp Suite for like 30, 45 minutes. And watching him click through that is like watching a sound engineer producing a song, and there's 1,000 buttons, and it's just like, oh yeah, this function is this and this. And I think that there's so much for you guys to learn. There's so many tactics and things that you have to learn, and then you have to apply the subjectivity of the client, the knowledge
Mhm.
that they have, the goals that their leadership has. It definitely keeps us on our toes, and I think that every time we meet, every week when we're having our team meetings, that could be rinse and repeat, and it could be a very like just kind of non-valuable
Yeah.
conversation. But we really dive into so many different topics and the client scenarios and whatnot, and we're always sharing information. But at the end of the day, you could do everything the best you possibly could. You could hit every mark that you possibly could, and the communication could be there, the updates could be there, and the client could still just decide, I'm not happy. It doesn't
Yeah.
happen with us very often, obviously, but I
No.
think that it's part of working with customers, and it's part of being a trusted partner to an organization. Is that when you get to that point of not quite seeing eye to eye, that's an opportunity to improve your relationship and work together and say, hey, maybe we just need to back up a little bit and let's understand some context. Let's talk through this and let's make sure that you come out of this conversation with some really good value and direction. And I think that
Yeah.
that's something that you definitely do really well, and something that I love watching you grow that
Yeah.
that confidence over the years. So pen
As new pen
testing,
testers are rolling in, like the soft skills, you cannot ignore them. Like you just cannot. You've got to
yeah,
practice at conversations, even sitting down with somebody like you, Joe, and just having a banter back and forth, and you know, having that moment where you're answering questions impromptu. I mean, all those things are really beneficial. So, and I think they make our product better. I think it really does. I mean, I'm so fortunate to have a client come back this year. I'm working with them right now on a 3-week
mm-hmm.
engagement who have requested me
They
specifically.
ask
And
for you, yeah.
and they, that is an honor, right? So like, and I have to say the gentleman who's kind of running point there, I just adore him. I think he's fantastic. So, yeah. So I think those are the preferred moments. It's sad when it happens otherwise, but it didn't happen often, like you said.
is really fulfilling when you get
Yeah.
an engagement and everyone seems to feel like it was a really good fit on both sides. Because I mean, you guys aren't out there picking the clients, and you don't get to pick who's coming to the table. And oftentimes, I don't get to pick. We'll have a lot of folks reach out too, and the job is to go through and figure out the needs. But sometimes you don't figure out the big aha moments until really deep in the engagement. And once
Yeah.
you've built that trust up to get to that point, information sharing, knowledge sharing, the good, the bad, and the ugly, you can go to each other very comfortably and say, "Hey, we're here together. We're kind of one team right now." So let's dive into some pen testing for those who might be watching and you need to get it, but you don't really know why. And why is everyone telling me to go get this pen test? We've had a lot of customers that have said, "What is this?"
Yeah.
So in your words, like what exactly is a pen test? Like how is it different from what a lot of orgs are doing out there, where they're getting a vuln scan and they think that they've covered themselves? Like what's really
Right.
the difference there? And share any kind of feedback you got on that.
We use automated vuln scans, and I use automation every day in my pen testing. But a pen test truly is a simulated attack on an environment, on a network, on a company. And it's the intention to break in a way that a threat actor actually would. But you're paying us to do it, right? So it's legal and fun. But also, really specifically, what we're doing is imitating some of the most common attacks, right? So I always think back to forensics days, and in terms of like an external pen test, one of the major things I'm trying to get into is an email account, because
Mm-hmm.
we're seeing billions of dollars lost year over year in business email compromise scams. Or I'm trying to break into some type of default credentials, because we know that that's low hanging fruit for threat actors. So a pen test truly is a non-automated, intentional attack on somebody's network, on someone's company. Sometimes that comes in the form of physical engagement, sometimes social engineering, so person to person. And then oftentimes, I think some of our most common pen tests are what, web apps and
Mm-hmm.
internals,
Mm-hmm.
externals.
Internals,
So
externals, web apps. I'd say that's the
that's
big trio.
meat and potatoes, sir.
No,
So
right.
it's the most common, us hitting the most common things attacked, kind of in a holistic way. I will say vulnerability
Yeah.
scans, like you could buy a pen test that someone is calling a pen test that is basically wrapped in a vulnerability scan. And so from the client perspective and from the pen tester's perspective, it is important to get in front of that conversation, like I know you do, and basically just say like, hey, like we're an automated focused on certain things, but largely manual shop, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's truly what I do. I mean, I'm not sitting there just running scripts back to back. I'm thinking like I want to get in. And really, the fun part is getting in anyway. So I'm thinking about it, working towards it.
Yeah, you're obsessive. We were messaging at 3 a.m. last night. But
I
I
was
think
up at 2 a.m. last night. Yeah,
oh yeah, it's 2 your time. That's right. Well,
that's right. Yeah.
I think the thing that you hit on, unfortunately, with the vuln scan is that with a lot of the requirements that are out there and not necessarily being so defined, the vuln scan definitely it's good to have it in place. Like get it in place,
Yeah.
get something in place that's showing you what you can assume, is probably low hanging fruit, maybe wrong. It's basically like telling you that your door handle might be unlocked or loose. And the pen test is like, well, we're gonna go shake that sucker and we're gonna go bang in. But I think that
Yeah.
the one of the problems for sure is the fact that there is that gray area of not necessarily knowing what you need to get and or you don't really have a lot of budget, but you need something. And so there are organizations that have built their services to say they're offering pen testing. And because the client doesn't necessarily know a difference, they're getting a vuln
Yeah.
scan. They're getting this report that's not getting a debrief. They're not really going through these things. And they're not
Right.
even also told, like, how do you go fix this stuff? And so I think
Yeah.
that there's really a comprehensive journey that goes with pen testing that vuln scan is like seeing the cover of the book, you know?
Yeah.
And I used to staff a lot of organizations that I didn't know the difference at first, and I would place these pen testers, and a few months later, you're talking with them, and they're kind of frustrated because they feel like, hey, I'm losing all my skills. I'm not even doing the vuln scan stuff. Like I'm doing a compliance thing here and there, but
Right.
they sold me this bill of goods, and those clients, I mean, they are raking in a lot of money from a lot of unsuspecting customers that either don't know the difference, don't really care, or just don't have the budget. And I think pen testing, we'll probably see more requirements for that in the future than we will see less. That would be my guess, just based on the types of attacks continuing to get so crazy, so consistent. No one's really off the grid for attacks now, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that with the pen testing, it can be really tough to know like how often are you supposed to do it? When should I get it done? There are some requirements that might say get this done annually, get an external test or whatnot. But from your view, like what are some of the most key times that you should be considering getting a pen test if it's out of like a requirement standpoint? Like you just got to get it, check a box. But outside of that, when do you think are some of the like the best times to go ahead and get a pen test?
The best times. I
Mhm.
mean, I, that's an interesting question. I mean, I think any change of leadership is a good time. I think that there are certain, I mean, I think you should do it yearly, of course. But also with major changes, we have a client who is completely changing their web application. So
Yeah.
with that, they've got a brand new web app coming out. We did testing on the old one, and now they're having a start fresh, right? It's brand new. And so there's also a part of me that wants to do that like miscongeniality. Like I think that web apps, or I think that pen test should be done like April 12th or something like that. But
April
that's
25th. April
April.
25th. Not too
Damn,
hot,
so
not too
close.
cold. Just
Not too
perfect
cold.
for just all you need is a light jacket. That's my wife's favorite
Oh,
movie. That's why I know that. My
and
dog is actually named after reality. So
pulling straight out the genialities. What is it, sayings?
yeah,
No, I think so. I mean, I think timing it right is actually part of it. You know, you can catch a pen test firm in the slow seasons, and I like want to really praise people that do that, getting them done earlier in the
yeah,
year. You're going to get a pen tester that is um more less stretched thin, I think is
yeah,
probably the way to say it the best. But really, I mean, just to sum it up, I think anytime you have a major, leadership change, anytime you have a major change to your environment or to your, applications, and then also it really does need to work for the business. So we've had pen tests before where like the technical support is going on vacation the week of the pen test. So maybe
yeah.
just like not when your
Not that
technical
week.
people are, not that week. Yeah.
That's fair.
April 26th, is that what I should be
that
saying? Okay.
that one's okay. April 25th is no good.
All right, all right, all right.
That's funny. I think that you hit something there though with the people side of it, the human side of it. Something that I've felt is interesting about pen testing, and I've kind of figured this out just through all the conversations over the years, is that depending on how you're going to go about your testing, like to some degree, the roll of the dice on who you get to test you is the biggest factor because of you're trying to assess what is my security posture, like how strong are we, and if you don't
Yep.
get a tester that is either locked in on that assessment or is just the right fit or is just honestly like going through whatever in life, right? Like to some degree you're assessing that person's skills versus
Hmm.
your own security, and you could come
Right.
away with a false sense of it, and I think that that's part of the crapshoot that comes with it. And so working with organizations that have sort of proven the walk and they know that what they're like our team, obviously I'm biased, but I'm incredibly proud to
Yeah.
go to bat for our team every day knowing I don't have to worry about are we cutting corners, are we actually doing what we say we're going to do. We teach
Right.
this stuff and we're going to maximize every day, and if we find a way in and we got time left, we're going to try to find another way in, and that
Just
should
come
be
back.
a narrative that you're giving to a customer to say, hey, you're paying us all this money to come and tell you guys where your holes are. And I think that's also the best clients are the ones that are
Yeah.
like, tear us up, like get
Tear
in
us up.
there and give
Yeah.
us the goods. And I'm trying to make change here. You know, like
Yeah.
I'm not like too prideful to say that we're perfect. And if you give me a perfect report, you're fired,
Yeah.
type of thing.
Yeah.
So I think that we're seeing some more orgs starting to open up and testing things that they hadn't done before, especially like internals, where I feel like on our team, we've talked about this multiple times, but internals seem to really yield a lot of the biggest action items and some of the
Yes.
things that might not be crazy adjustments or upheavals of like effort might take a little time, but it's going to majorly like positively impact, your org. From
Yes.
your experience, like where have you seen some of the best value customers are getting recently from different types of tests? Any kind of examples there?
I mean, Heath, the beginner of the company of TCM, I mean, Heath was educating people on Active Directory before any other
Mhm.
major, educational institution was in terms of pen testing. And so our team is excellent at Active Directory. I mean, I can't tell you how many hours I've spent sitting in Bloodhound, just like ensuring that I understand what groups have permissions to, certain objects and things like that. I think Active Directory focus is huge. Christopher Essien said, yes, AD. Yes, AD. It's huge.
Ah.
If you're a pen test team, if you're scoping somebody out and you ask them like, what's your method for Active Directory? And they can't just immediately spit out what they're going to do. You might want to go with someone else, unless you don't have AD, in which case maybe you're fine. Um, so
Good.
I
Might be a
think
little concern there.
it might be a little concerning. Um, for web app pen testing, you really do want to know that like the top 10 is being hit. Um, I think web app top 10 that's put out regularly. You want a firm who's going to really go through those motions to ensure that those things are being addressed because that's what's being taught, right?
Mhm.
So the potential threat actors out there in the world, they're learning the same stuff that the potential pen testers are learning. And all those script kiddies, like they're learning the top 10, right? And then externals, I think they're just such a special bag. Personally, externals, I think will always hold a really special place to me because it really calls for someone knowing how that external pivot happens. You want a firm who understands that like not only is it possible, but what are all of the small ways to try to mitigate that, in the interim. So there's some great tools out there that exist that like will tell you, okay, MFA is in place, but it's not in place everywhere, right? And you don't want a firm that's just going to say MFA is instituted. You want a firm that's going to go through and look through each piece, each component, right?
Mhm.
So I hope that answers the question. I think, generally picking kind of the right pen test provider comes down to a little bit to what you want as a client. Do you want someone who's going to be available and educate you along the way? Are you trying to kind of like check a box? Either are okay from my perspective as a pen
Yeah.
tester, but I'm gonna put the same energy in, and that's still what you want, right? You don't want a pen tester who's gonna see you and say, well, it sounds like they're just here to check a box. I'm just gonna check a box. No, you still want someone who's gonna try their best, right?
It seems kind of almost like unbelievable, actually, when you hear some of the stories about the experience that some of the companies get with a partner. Maybe they got what they knew they were getting and what they paid for, but they
Yeah,
were left a little unfulfilled. If it's their first time, they may not know the difference. But when you hear some of the stories about what the experience was like, hey, we didn't actually know when they were working. We didn't know what they were doing. We were never given any kind of information about it. It's kind of like
right.
the fun part is actually communicating with the clients and sharing this updates and bantering about it and going back and
Yeah,
letting them get an opportunity to get sparked and go, oh, whoa, what, that's interesting, and
right.
like if you're just operating in the shadows the whole time, that could be part of it. If you're doing a red team engagement or something where most folks are not supposed to know that you're there for a long time, you're really operating quietly, and maybe there's not a lot of shared information until the end or whatnot. But pen test to me should be, they shouldn't be taking super long. They should be really well informed for information, and you should get to know the person that you're working with, because you're trusting that person, that human being, that company, but also that person with the jewels. I mean, you're trusting
Yeah,
that person with your company's setup, and so getting to
right.
know them. And it's weird when we get clients that are like, "Yeah, we don't do calls. We don't meet companies before we can, we evaluate." I'm like, I can't imagine. I mean, do you just like do a mail-in bride too? I mean, how do you how do you just select from not even knowing what you're picking? It doesn't make sense to me when you have the option to really dive a little deeper. And so, no,
I
that's a great
agree.
answer. And I think you talked about
Yeah.
the external, and I know you have a special place for that. And I also know that you have had a real passion for open source intelligence, and you've been a student of this and a teacher of
Yes.
this. We had a good
Yep.
question in the chat that talked about kind of your journey, but which self projects made you stood out most as a pen tester before the PORP? And you can talk a little bit about the PORP as well, would be great. But something that sort of
Yeah.
it said got you noticed, but more so I would say helped you notice yourself. Helped you to recognize like this is it for me, and I get this. I can connect these dots. I'd like to hear a little bit about that.
So what projects was I working on before, and why OSINT? Man, why not OSINT?
That's fun. It's
Even
true.
now, I'll give you the thing I'm currently doing with OSINT, and I think that'll explain a lot about why I why I was interested in it, why I found it interesting first. So my current thing with OSINT is I'm trying to track how money's moving. So we know the stock market is really funny right now. Gold is at all-time high. Critical minerals are big. There's, you know, conversations with Australia and England. And if you want to catch those companies before they're announced, maybe you figure out who's traveling to what countries for what meetings. And
That's
so
wild.
there's a lot of really great OSINT that exists out there. Aviation OSINT is a huge deal, right? You can tell what planes are flying where very easily with open source tools.
My dad's
Um,
favorite hobby is sitting on his patio and tracking where a plane's going. Literally, he texts
yeah,
me this all the time.
right, right.
It's
A lot
fun.
of that information is public. So imagine a company that does uranium in Australia is talking with the United States government, or you think they are. And you know a meeting is happening here in the United States. Maybe you look for those individuals to see if they're posting on social media that they're traveling, or if maybe a plane that they own is coming to the US for some reason. And then maybe you buy that stock. I don't know. I'm not giving you financial advice. I'm just saying OSINT is interesting. So that's where it's ended up at. Where it began was just being fundamentally interested in the world around me, and being interested in what data of mine was out there. When I was doing business email compromise investigations and doing kind of like the scammer stuff, a mentor told me that I needed to be really careful because some of these threat groups would actually figure out where the people trying to tackle romance scams and stuff like that, they would figure out where you
Mhm.
would live and they would send things physically to your house. Some of these threat groups really are abrasive when it comes to that. And so that was the first step that I really took, was trying to remove myself from the internet. Nowadays, you might find Angela Brown in Austin, Texas. It is not my address.
Hmm.
There's a couple of us here in the state, a couple of us here in the city. None of them are me. So that's what kind of where it began. And then personal projects to really get into pen testing. I mean, I don't think it's any secret for the community that's here. Y'all know that I was TCM from the get-go. I I'm self-taught. I'm YouTube taught. And I'm really proud of that. And so, I would do the things that I could find that were free. But I also had all this stuff. I had the blog and this and that. And I like to volunteer my time too. So I think you've got to hit each mark, in my opinion. I try to be a gift to the community, so I'm really active in WISP, and some other things. So that's a big answer to your question. But essentially, open source intelligence, fun, do it. This is not financial advice, but maybe find a thing that makes you interested in OSINT and go for it. And then in terms of projects, it just, there's a rhyme and a reason out there for a reason. Plug in what is my plan to learn to be a pen tester into Chat GPT and just do it. Just go for it. But that's essentially what I did without the Chat GPT because it didn't exist at the time.
Your project made me feel like I don't have enough cool projects in my life because what you just described, I actually, because I'm always, we even talked about it yesterday, your interest in the stock market and investments and trying to track it, but I don't think we really ever talked about how you're applying OSINT principles to that. A great example of how it's not used just as like a cybersecurity tool. Like I used to joke
Yeah.
to people, it's like you go into a high school and say, "Hey, are any of you in here stage 5 clingers and your ex-boyfriend, you want to know where he is?" Like that's an OSINT skill that you
No
can
sin
turn into
skill.
a career in the next
Hmm.
5 years if you're interested.
Yeah.
Not that we're
The
we're clamoring for stage 5 cleaners, but there's some talent there.
There's some talent. Yeah, the PORP, the question on that. So we at TCM, we
Mhm.
have a bunch of certifications. You're in this webinar for one of two reasons. One, you're thinking about maybe getting a pen test for your company. Two, you're here because you're our homies from TCM on the TCM side, who are learning with TCM, going and doing the education. And so the PORP, just to explain that for maybe those that don't know, it's our OSINT based certification. And like Noah said in the chat, early adopter, that was a fast, 100 that passed that, which was super cool. But it's essentially our our standard and entry point certification for OSINT. And it was a labor of love. I sat down and over the span of a month just hammered out what I
Mhm.
thought would be fun to do for a certification. It is hard. We don't have an incredible pass rate, which I am proud of because
Mhm.
OSINT shouldn't be easy. But yeah, I think if you're interested in learning about OSINT, it's a great thing to go for sure.
I sat down to start on that, and one of the first things that talked about was like the Linux skills needed. And I
Yeah.
was looking at my calendar. I was like, yeah, maybe next week for this one because it's the primary certification and really training to me that I think just applies to what I'm doing. In sales roles, in any kind of
Right.
role. Like when I was recruiting, my goodness, like just tracking as much information as possible. And there's definitely times where I probably did a little too much research, a little overkill, for no other reason than I just was interested in something. It led to a trail. I found some information. And then I get in the call and a scenario pops up where I'm like, I'm actually armed with really good info right now
Yeah.
to talk about this or to show them the value of it. But also, we get attacks attempts, phishing attempts and whatnot from a sales perspective, and we get a lot of stuff that looks good. And
Hmm.
when you're in sales and you get that dopamine hit of like, oh sweet, got a
Yeah.
prospect, like let's go take a look at this, and then you really do some digging, and you're like, let me look up that address real quick, and then the address
Yeah.
is sort of like a nothing address, and you realize, well, there's no like building number, there's no suite number, there's 7 things tied to this address on Google, or you notice that the website has 2024 in it instead of 2025. And 5 minutes of a little research online, it can save you. It definitely has saved me. There's been a few times where I almost clicked something or almost was like responding in
Hmm.
5 minutes of time, and so for sure getting to work with you all has been really beneficial for me to just understand some basic things to look for. But no, I appreciate you sharing. And I would say one thing that the corp to me stands out for you, and really just pen testing in general, is that you can't just rest on your laurels and kind of be good and stay good, and you have to keep challenging yourself and putting yourself out there in ways. And most people, though, are going to get to that precipice of like, I have an idea and I want to, see what I can do with it. And then life happens, and then you don't create the thing. So I'm personally very proud of you for putting yourself out there like that, because that is not a small thing to do, to try to create a certification, especially as you were
Yeah.
building your confidence in this role and in this field. Um, and I'm just very proud of you. And so I will go to
Thanks,
the next
man.
question there. A little personal segue there, but we also had a question in the chat that I think is very relevant for today. But how do you see AI being used alongside current pen testing methodologies, if at all?
Yeah, I mean, I use AI. Well, I'm not going to call ChatGPT AI yet. I use components of, machine learning every single day, right? For me, I think the strongest thing is reporting, because almost like, why wouldn't you, right? If you can
Yeah.
make your reporting stronger and ensure that you are consistent in your reporting, it's the part that a lot of people hate to do. I actually don't hate
Mm-hmm.
reporting as much as I think some of my peers might. But why not utilize it as a tool for good? It gives you more time back for the clients as well.
Mm-hmm.
But then I think that there are certain attacks that like you could absolutely utilize. I've used ChatGPT at length to generate word lists and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
What I'll do is like say I'm trying to password spray a chemical company in Minnesota, right? Not
Mm-hmm.
real. I have not done a pen test to my knowledge for a company that does chemicals in Minnesota. But what I would do is I would go to ChatGPT and I would say, I just need a bunch of words that relate to chemicals and any Minnesota sports team, and maybe a bunch of Minnesota cities. And also like, you know, this is the specific subset of chemicals. So like maybe anything to do with those. And then I've got a cool little password list that I didn't spend almost any time creating that is stronger and more specific for the engagement that I'm doing. So that's just a little example. I think we'll see. I mean, we already know it's no secret in the community that like some of the AI pen testers are incredibly proficient.
Mm-hmm.
We've got, we've got threat actors certainly using machine learning in their attacks. And so for me, I live in a world where I'm like, if threat actors are doing it, I'm going to do it. Period. End of story. So that's the quick and dirty for me. Yeah, I'm like,
That's the last thing you said is very, I think it's
yeah,
very important to say it and to consider it. I mean, we've talked about as a team and different members of the team actually, dialoguing with bad guys out there, real bad
yeah,
guys, understanding what are they doing and getting ideas of different attacks and like what's working. And that's
right.
the thing that sucks so much about technology is that everything that's created and is innovative and is a great tool or great value to a lot of people is a weapon now or a
Yeah,
vessel for a bad guy who's sitting there going, well, this is cool. Like my government actually pays me to go hit you guys up. I have lots of time. They give me a couple
right.
years, and I'm actually revered for doing that. And meanwhile, everybody that's created this thing is like, "Hey, listen, we got all this awesome stuff that we want to share with the world," and they're like licking their chops. And AI,
Yeah,
I think it's really silly to just even it's silly to just say in this day and age that AI is not going to be involved in literally everything at some point. But pen testing, it'll always be, it's going to be a great supplemental tool, I think, and it will be the de facto way that people get testing at some point, or already are probably, right? But you
yes,
still, in my opinion, you have to have some sort of manual validation to back everything up if you're really going to get a true peace of mind
yeah.
at night. And that's the difference. But ask
We'll
us that
never
question
take,
in a year. Who knows what our answer is going to be in a year, right?
yeah, we'll never take human cleverness out of pen testing. Um,
Right.
and I would be sus about any company saying that they're doing fully automated AI pen testing. Because
Facts.
what you're doing is you're trusting the bias of the machine to look at your environment and sit and basically say, well, I think that this is important. And
Mm-hmm.
we know that's not how attacks happen. We know that that's not, you know, we know that that's not what's going on, right? So
Yep.
yeah, I don't think you'll take the human cleverness out of it in any way, shape, or form. I think if anything, we just need to use it as a tool for what it is. Now I will say I spent 4 hours trying to get Callie back up yesterday because I was dumb and trusted AI and hadn't taken client data off of my Callie box and did something and messed it up. So also, don't trust AI for
Part of
everything.
it.
We're
That's
not
part of it.
there. So pen testers and potential pen testers beware. Don't trust it with too much.
Yeah, throw it in your toolkit, but don't necessarily pull it out first every time.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we've got. Thanks for sharing that. I think there's some. You're really hitting some human elements of the human experience of it, and it is even where you were talking about where this thing didn't work,
Yeah.
and being able to figure it out and work through it. The next time that scenario comes up, it's a different way you're rolling that out.
Hmm.
Um, so with pen testing, we hit on this with like, there's a lot of clients that needed box check, and honestly, they're not even going to be really available. They need the report. They need to take that report. When they get that though, like we're hoping that this pen test is going to be something that helps that organization fight off these bad guys, prevent breaches, prevent security incidents.
Yeah.
What is really like, why would a customer, if we're talking to a customer from your view, because I might have a different answer, but why would a customer need to care about pen testing as a way to help them prevent future incidents? Like, why does that make sense?
I think just simply, the right pen test team is taking it, is kind of bringing their energy and effort to you as a threat actor would.
Mm-hmm.
Right back to the first answer there. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've sat on a call Friday night, ransomware incident hit, Thanksgiving is coming up, something
Yeah.
like that. These cyber incidents, like they happen at the least opportune time, right? And that's really why pen test is, because the threat actors are going to be doing it regardless of if you get a pen test or not. So you
Huh.
might as well at least kind of have a heads up about some of the lower hanging fruit. Pen tests are not perfect. I mean, I'm an overachiever, and I know a lot of people here in the chat like are overachievers because I've watched you guys grow and learn.
Mhm.
You're never going to find everything on a pen test, nor should a pen test do that. It's a moment in time to get a perspective of what a threat actor is really saying.
I think that there's a lot of unfortunate scenarios too where someone gets a pen test, but they're so ill-equipped to handle the remediation,
Yeah.
or they just don't necessarily have the technical breadth to like understand what do I do with this information. And that's where we have to fill in that gap and really be teachers. But one thing that I think really like two things that I think, I mean, most of orgs probably know they've got some skeletons in the closet that are going to
Yeah.
get uncovered by either the ethical bad guys or the unethical bad guys, right? And I think confirming that information, getting a pen test can really help confirm your doubts or your thoughts or your worries, and at least it's sort of like if you got a lump, go get checked, right? Instead of just thinking about it and assuming and waiting for the worst to happen. It's like go get checked and get this verified that you have these issues. But I think another a big positive that's really not necessarily spoken about, but twofold. If you're someone that's trying to advocate for a pen test for your company, one,
Yeah.
they could be the thing that helps you get the change that you need. If you've been really fighting for a change and you can't seem to get the support, and then you're like, you know what, can you come in here and prove that this is really a bad setup and write
Yeah.
it in the report and make it explicitly clear that we advise you to change this, that would really help me. And that's unfortunately like a battle a lot of folks are fighting because either they can't
Yeah.
communicate it really well, they don't have the evidence to support it, or the management or leadership that has all the strings pulling capabilities,
Right.
like they're just not scared enough yet. But I also think that when you get that pen tested, by doing that, you're creating an environment that says we're trying to improve. Like, and I think that if
Mhm.
you're a security posture, a security team, if you're a company that says you take security seriously, then you kind of always have to be in that mindset of continuous improvement. And I think getting a pen test is a great way to say, well, we are not only doing things to really check where are we weak, but we are giving ourselves action items, and each one of these action items is an improvement. And it doesn't mean that it's going to keep the bad guys. It doesn't mean that it's going to
Right.
keep them out, but it's probably going to be a lot less surprising where and when something happens. You're going to shrink that surface. You're going to shrink the ability for an internal threat to navigate through. So there's a whole lot of things that I think it does just for the psyche of an
Yeah.
organization if done correctly. So let's
Yeah,
see here.
Joe, I've got advice for either the pen testers in the crowd or people potentially looking for a pen test. I can't tell you how many times I have known I've had the rapport going, and I've just pulled a client to the side, that lead IT person that seems interested, that's maybe sat with me on a shadow session or something like that, and been like, what do you want me to say along with the other things that I'm going to find? Like, what do
Right.
you want me to say? Because I want to argue on your behalf too. And if I can make a point and prove a point for you that you think is important, because our clients know best, like what the crown jewels are and how bad things could get, how fast. So I've done that a lot. I've just basically been like, hey, like, tell me what you want out of this test in terms of
Mm-hmm.
like real specifics. Do you want me to like really talk about the password policy? Because we can talk about that password policy if you want to.
Well, that helps me a lot too because
Mhm.
my job is to vet the why and the what are you looking for and what are the goals, what are you concerned about, like what do you want us to really hit. Y'all's expertise is going to have you asking some of those questions in different ways, a little bit more pointed maybe. And so I think that it's really good to as a team to prioritize their business goals more than anything. I mean, you have to bring your technical expertise to the table to help them tell that story and figure out what that
Right.
story is. But uh, let's see, we got a question here, Hamza. So it's a good question, and been applying for jobs for a while. Bachelor's in computer science, several certifications for TCM. Having a hard time finding anything. This is a little off topic, but I think it's very relevant for a lot of folks that are in the market or even have jobs right now and would like to leave their jobs, but are a little afraid of the market because it really has been tough the last couple of years. We're seeing tons of layoffs. seems like every month you're finding a 10,000 people were laid off type of link. There's a lot of competition in jobs. One thing I will say is that in pen testing, obviously I've never done it, but I get to watch the grind and the resilience that you guys have to have in your testing, because you hit walls. You've talked about several walls that you'll hit. You have to be a very persistent person. If anything, the silver lining of not finding that job is preparing you for the job to some degree. It's building up that thick skin of persistence and realizing like I've got some real hurdles I've got to get around here in hacking the job board, so to speak. Well, Hamza, I would say hit me up offline, man, for sure, to talk through some of that. You're obviously a very well respected member of our community and somebody that we really advocate for and want to see. And one thing to remember, just from my view, a lot of the jobs that you thought you hoped you were going to get and that you didn't get was the best blessing you're ever going to have. And oftentimes, those roles that land at the wrong time can kind of detour your direction, without you realizing it. And so it's easy to say that 2020 and retrospectively. I can look back over 20 plus years career and think of the jobs at the time that I really, really wanted and I really was going for and I didn't get them and just how heartbroken it was. And then a year later being like, thank goodness I didn't get that job. But at the same time, that didn't pay the bills. So give me a
Yeah.
shout offline. We can definitely talk more about the details there. But I've got another question here from David. I think that's David
Also,
Elgett. Oh, go ahead.
if
Go
anyone
ahead, Ange.
if anyone is looking to hire someone, give someone their first shot, anyone at any point watching this, Hamza is well worth the shot. I just want to say that right out loud. So we'll just throw that out there too. If you need
That's
someone,
unanimous. That's
I think
unanimous over
he'll
here.
I think Hamza would do, and I don't want to speak for you, my dude, but I think you would do anything. I think you would do help desk. I think you would start anywhere just to get your foot in the door. So
Yep. It's a grind though right now. It's definitely tough times. It's it's
it's
it's
rough.
tough to feel confident in the advice I'm getting about the market. Compared to what I used to feel like I knew, it definitely is a different field. It's very competitive. And obviously when you have layoffs and whatnot, it just gets more competitive. But the networking side of things in terms of connecting with people, showing up to things like this and having your name pop up and be relevant. Like these are little things
Yeah,
that you don't know where it's going to go, but you certainly can't apply, sit and wait for the world to come to you. It's just not going to happen. And that's for any profession. But in pen testing, it's incredibly competitive. And I think that you can work on your technical skills all day, but if you're not applying the best practices of getting to know people, networking with people that have had different or similar paths, have ends, whatever, you have to think about it like this is long term. This is an investment in myself, and I don't know where it's going to go, but I know that I want to get to know these people, and then we'll see where the chips fall. But if you're
yeah,
thinking about it as like I've got to have something that turns this into a job really quickly, oftentimes that's very obvious and that doesn't work out that way. So thinking long term, I think, is the way to go, but always being ready to. So we had another question though from David. To what extent does educating the client come into play when conducting a pen test or when closing the client for a pen test? Which is a good question from like a sales perspective, because
yeah,
I've got to explain the value of it, but I've got to understand what are your pain points to uncover what's
right.
valuable. I could tell you, hey, we're going to do all these great shiny things. They're like, cool. I don't need any of that. Like, I need a focus on this. But educating the client, this is something that I think is really important because, especially in the debriefs, we had a couple of scenarios this year that we talked about where the client got a really rough report. And by rough, it just means lots of findings, right? And maybe they weren't ready for it, and then they would bring in someone who represents or owns Active Directory, for example, and they just got shredded, and they don't necessarily understand the like why is this an issue, or how did we do this, or what configurations are wrong. And it can be a little defensive too when you feel like you're the one that has been just got bullied and now you have to come explain
Yeah.
yourself in a room full of strangers and your bosses. So our job there is to really not just educate but create a safe space. What's your mentality when you're going to those conversations with clients and you can tell that they don't necessarily have all the knowledge that they need?
You know, I always try to ask more questions than less, because ultimately I really want to understand and empathize with where the client is coming from. So typically I like to think, give it some time ahead of time and just sort of think about maybe some questions that could come up, but also have questions ready for them. So that's kind of the first thing there. practice patience. I mean, you're going to have executives and you're going to have brand new IT people in the debriefs sometimes, right? And so I think that you've got to be able to sort of spread that out. Again, maybe a great use of AI for some people is to say, this is the technical thing. Can you help me stretch it more technical? And can you help me
Mm-hmm.
stretch it less technical? Maybe is the big
Yes.
key thing there, right? And so I think for me, education is a critical component of any pen test. You're going to have clients that don't talk to you at all during pen tests sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And then you'll have clients that you'll get to sit one-on-one with. I think, I'm kind of reading over, it's David's question, right?
Mm-hmm.
The extent is really, it's driven by the client. And really quickly. So uh try to match that tone as much as you can. In my opinion, it always goes better when you're, communicating like them, and understanding, like the cadence that they want. Some people don't want to sit down and learn. Some people just want to look over the report and sort of pick at it, right? That's okay too.
Yep.
But it certainly can't hurt to offer, hey, I just finished with the OSINT portion. Did you want to sit with me and sort of look over what I found? Right.
And I think the shadowing part that we offer here is it's a really big difference maker for
Mhm.
definitely folks that want to take that up and be able to ride along during the pen test and get that knowledge, get that context, get
Mhm.
even training, if they're interested in duplicating it. Because a lot of these orgs, they have lean teams. They definitely want to have some sort of knowledge or presence in-house that can do a little pen testing, even if just internal or maybe on a little web app here and there, but surface level stuff, but at least getting some sort of knowledge to where they can see through the smoke. And so I think that that's a big benefit. But I really think that if you're a client that you're paying a bunch of money for this service that either you have to get or you really want to get, if you have the
Yep.
opportunity to throw yourself into it and come out much more equipped to communicate it, do it, duplicate it, whatever, and it's
Right.
there, and you don't take that and you have the option, then you're really missing out on continuous improvement personally and for your company. I
Yeah.
think that we've got some clients, like it's not like we have CISOs reaching out every time. Most of the time, the conversation is with someone that's from analyst level to manager of a team. We had an intern earlier this year that was tapped to find the pen testing partner, and they had literally
Yeah.
like they're like five minutes old, and their eyes big and they're a little overwhelmed. And that right there is like, hey, at the end of the day, you may not pick us. I'm going to arm you with as much information as possible so that when you go into your next calls or you look back on the calls you had previously with other customers, that you can get a deeper vetting of like, is that a good fit for us? So, and that's happened to us many times where we've had customers say, I want to work with you guys, love you guys. We just had it last week with a loyal customer we worked with for years, and they said, hey, I'm so sorry, we got overruled, and we're going to go with
Yeah.
another firm. And it's like, well, hey, no worries, man. We'll be here, and we wish you all the best. You've been an amazing customer, but also don't forget to ask about this. Don't forget to go get this, because last year
Yeah.
when we were testing, we were talking about that. And so I think arming people with knowledge and information about how to prepare for this pen test, what questions to ask, how do I even find a partner that I'm willing to trust my whole jewel box with and my whole company, and they're not going to disrupt my services. And that's a big unnerving risk, I think, for a lot of folks. And so
Yeah.
preparing them for the right questions, I think. Are there any certain things that you've seen? And I have my thoughts, but are there any certain concerns that you've seen working with customers over the years where they don't necessarily know what to ask? Are there any things that they're not asking enough? They're not coming prepared or worried enough about?
I love a client who asks, like, knowing now what you know about my environment, what are you most worried about for me? Right.
Hmm.
I love that question because I get a chance to really sort of like stretch that out and talk
Let's
about
go.
the whole view. Yeah, that's right, Joe. Hudson taking notes. I have to send you a notebook, by the way.
How
Remind
do
me
I how
later.
do I do have quite a slew of notebooks and number two pencils.
Yeah, I've got some lock picks and some notebooks for you. I need to mail them.
Nice.
Yeah. So I think most of our clients that come to TCM for a pen test, I think most of them, to be quite honest, really want what we're kind of serving up. And this might not answer the question completely, but I'll wrap it back around. We do have clients that just want to check the box, but most people know us for our training, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I will say that the clients that get the most out of this, they roll in with an expectation of us. And that would scare a lot of pen testers.
Sure.
It doesn't me. Maybe the first couple weeks it felt a little, intimidated and had that had those feelings, right? But but I think most of the time our clients know what to ask. When they don't, it is my job as a pen tester to try to help the space and fill that space up. So maybe that's a roundabout way of just saying, like, here at TCM we do see a lot of people that know what they're doing, and what they want to ask and what they want to get out of it. But your job as a pen tester, my job as a pen tester, is also to fill that and to ensure that I'm getting across, like, the proper risks, the proper concerns.
I think that it's your job, and I think that that is one gap
Yeah.
in the field, unfortunately. And if they don't ask, then I don't need to ask them. Is kind of like the attitude with too many, and it's just get through, get the bare minimum, and honestly, the questions context. I mean, we've even had reports where there's findings that we've designated as critical or high, not critical, but something that's pretty serious, and then we talk through it. We're able to contextualize
Yeah.
it and go, oh, this is an assumed risk, like, or this is an accepted risk, for the org. And so being able to talk through that and even get to that unity of agreeing, like, oh, okay, like, well, you're saying it, here's why you shouldn't be. I mean,
Yeah.
we tested certain things this year and last year. I mean, we did that mobile app that they took it off the Apple Store that day. But it came down
Yeah.
to questions about, like, what's going through here, and what is going to happen if this happens. And then they're like, oh, that
Right.
would be just the crumble our entire company. Cool. Take that off the store.
Yeah. Take it off.
But if they
Write
just
down.
gave them the report and we didn't really talk through that, you don't really know where that's going to go or what their interpretation is going to be. And so assuming
Yeah.
that they know nothing is not the right way, but assuming they know enough and they know what questions to ask, we can't do that. And I think it's great that you own that and you say, it is my job to do that. You
Mhm.
can't even rely on the sales guy. I mean, that I put my effort and stuff in there, but you certainly should not just rely on Joe Hudson to vet every bit of details and information and ask all the right questions. And I think that
Yeah.
is the difference between a lot of firms. But I know we're coming up on the end here, which is crazy. I do have one more question that I definitely would like to ask, and for anyone that's been watching, if there were questions that you had or you think of afterwards, just ping Andrew or I directly, and we were happy
Yeah.
to get you guys some information. But after retesting or after pen testing, that's where I think a lot of orgs struggle. We talk to clients where they're almost embarrassed. If you test them last year and, like, we weren't able to get to much of the remediation, and I think that that's where a lot of orgs feel directionless, and they're not given a lot of that direction by the pen testers of prioritization and what are the ways to go. But what are your thoughts on post pen testing, and what is a good sort of approach for a company after a pen test?
I'm a big fan of ensuring that those criticals are knocked out first, those highs are knocked out second, and then you take a look and you prioritize the rest of it. If our team is marking something as critical, it typically means this is on fire. And then right after that, the highs are, things that are very, very likely. So prioritization, I personally would not overcomplicate it. We've seen our clients have a lot of success and just um, almost like I think it was David earlier that said that, like, half of the battle is doing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we suggest putting a plan in place and just tackling those things slowly. We do see clients accept risk. We have a client that
Mm-hmm.
has really weak passwords for specific things in an environment, and they have to be weak. And so being able to talk about that and sort of contextualize, like, yes, this is a high, and it will always remain a high because it's weak passwords, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we're accepting of this, and we're not going to address it this year. We're not going to address it. I think that that's important too. I will say, as a pen tester, I can't be the one to say, this is your storybook. This is your how to get 0 to 60 to super secure in 60, 90 days, right? But what I can say is this is the most likely stuff that we're seeing in terms of threat actor activity.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, and you've got the retest there for a reason, right? Right now we're doing like 120 days out because we're in
Mhm.
Q4. But typically 90 days after we can retest, and a lot of our clients try to hit that we want the highs and we want the criticals. We want those checked off, right?
Mhm.
So I like that method.
Continuous improvement, just constantly working
Continuous
and improving
improvement.
yourself and getting sharp haircuts, basically. I
That's
think that
right.
it's really fun to reconnect with an org that's excited to come back for the pen test and go, I don't think you guys are getting in this time. I don't think you're getting it this time because we took your advice and we ramped up, we took your training and we decided to go through and we're applying our own practices. And then they're so excited to pen test, hoping that, it's going to go better. But at the same time, they want new findings. They want to have stuff to work on. Just keeps it
Right.
exciting. It keeps us on our toes. It keeps us working with a really diverse clientele. And
Yeah.
honestly, it's just kind of a joy to watch those improvements. It's cool, painful at times to watch a client kind of struggle, go through a lot
Yeah.
of transition with leadership change or acquisitions or things that just really disrupt their ability to get to point B and then point C and point D for their security posture. But most folks that we know, they're doing the best they can. They're showing
Oh,
up every
yeah.
day. They're doing the best they can with what they got. And unfortunately, the attackers out there just have a lot more time, a lot more resources, funding, creativity, and or they get lucky. They just
Yeah.
get lucky. So, but no, I appreciate everything you said today. I could sit and talk with you for three or
Thanks,
four
Joe.
hours. I think there were some questions we didn't quite get to, but I think we also covered a lot of extra stuff today that was good topics. So for everybody who's in the chat, thanks so much for
Yeah.
dialoguing and David Elgett for sure, homie since day one, man. Your talk with me yesterday was really great, man. So that's another thing, pen testers and folks out there, just throw yourselves into the community. There's some incredible people out there that are going to keep you sane, keep you intrigued, and keep you really learning. And so uh, I think that that's probably it for us today. Won't be the last time we talk. Won't be the last time we push information out, and won't I bet we'll change our opinion on some of the things we've said today within the next few years. We'll see where it goes. But
You'll
yeah, if
see me
anybody else
huddled
has
over
any
some
questions,
coffee at some point, being like, I hate AI. I don't use AI at all
just
in pen testing.
just
I'll be in my
curmudgeon
60s just talking clanker,
your head instead
going
of
on
dirt
about it.
bag, you're just the curmudgeon pen tester. I was telling you, like
Ah,
I'm going to do cranky old man.
six
But
months from now. Yes.
yeah, really, no, this was fun. Really appreciate everybody joining. And Mariella, if there's anything else that you wanted to add, feel free to take it away.
Awesome. Thank you so much. You both gave so many amazing insights as our audience is throwing in the chat a bunch of thank yous. So just wanted to remind everyone that if they needed any additional information on this topic, please go right ahead and visit us at tcm-sec.com or click the links I shared in the chat. We have a couple of free resources that I wanted to share and just remind everyone that they're here, and just like TCM is. So if you missed out on any part of the session, we will be sharing this recording with all of you in an email after the webinar. So be on the lookout for that. Thank you both so much, and thanks to our amazing chat today.
Thanks, Mariella.
Alrighty. We'll
Thanks,
see you
Ange.
all
Thanks,
soon.
y'all.
We'll talk soon. Have a great rest of your week, everyone, and bye for now.
Bye, everybody.